Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Today I'm going to be looking at the SEESTERN S456 GMT sports watch. This is the newest release and I've had to bump this up the schedule to allow all you guys that are interested in this to really let you know what it's all about. So specifications and dimensions are to be displayed on screen. Now this watch retails under normal circumstances around the £200 mark, but in the sales I got mine at £170 and some got it even cheaper due to their own personal coins and coupons. I can tell you right now off the bat, it's one of the best watches that SEESTERN have made, if not their best. And where it stands across the whole AliExpress, general population, this can definitely stand right next to San Martin, shoulder to shoulder. And there's even some aspects which I think make it slightly better than San Martin on some of the features. So let's go ahead and take you through an in-depth review of the S456 by SEESTERN. Now to start off, we've got 4 colors and I happen to have 3 out of the 4 that are on offer. So let's take a closer look at them in hand. Now the first one is that dark blue dial and it's by far the most understated out of the 4 options. It's a very deep blue with slight hints of purple depending on your lighting. It does look great outdoors and for me it's a perfect match for that general blue-white aesthetic. We then have the white pearl dial. Looks very crisp. You've got some really nice deep green accents with a matching GMT hand and of course that mother of pearl dial. Now the mop dial does give you a very slight pearlescent shine at certain angles, but for the most part it is quite a solid white and again it looks absolutely stunning. Now the one in hand I have is the one I purchased. This is the light blue or teal blue mother of pearl dial. Now this dial has a lot more of that pearly or iridescent sheen, but it looks as good as the others too. And the last one is the green sunray, which of course I don't have in hand. Now out of the ones that I've seen physically with my own eyes, my preference really now is that dark blue dial. I do like how understated it looks and I prefer that blue violet hue from the sunray dial. And of course that understated look really helps complement the casework and all the polishing that you have and the very high end brushing that you see on the watch. Now in terms of the actual watch, it is homaging the GS Sports GMT, the SBGJ model line, with difference in references being related to the colorways. So the 237 is most like the dark blue dial and the 275 is the sea of clouds, similar to that of the teal mother of pearl. Now there's 2 points to look at here. One is how close this is to the watch it's homaging, and the second is how well it's been made just as a watch. So let's cover the first part, and to cover the first part, a massive shout out to GXXX who owns an SBG J275 and he bought the SEESTERN S456 and I asked in the comment section that he gives me feedback in comparison. So I'll show the comments up on screen, but to summarize, he added a little point from San Martin. So he owns the original Zulu time and he also has San Martin's version, and he noticed the original Zulu time has much better dial work and better indice work. Now in comparison, the SEESTERN versus the GS, his words were the dial work looks so much closer to the quality and the detail, and it's much harder to make out a clear-cut difference. Now of course the GS indices and the GS level of watchmaking is at a much higher level of scrutiny and detailed work, but visually it does look quite close. And a note on the casework also, it's very close. Obviously not GS Zaratsu level polishing, but it's an amazing job by SEESTERN on achieving a very close finish. And the final comments are it's around 95% similar. So if you want to check out that comment, go back to the unboxing video, you'll find all the information there. The key difference for me is obviously that crown position and the bezel rotation. SEESTERN used the 120 click unidirectional bezel, whereas the GS is of course bidirectional. But now for the second point on just how good this watch is by itself. So the first thing I want to talk about is the dial. And I'm not going to actually talk about the dial material or the dial colors, but it's all about the handset and the indices. Absolutely wow. They are definitely elite. There's an unreal level of crispness and sharp and perfect machining that I've seen here on the hour markers. They're cut perfectly with mirror polished bevels which reflect so much light, even with the smallest slithers of polishing that you find on the markers. And then you've got the larger markers at the 12, 6 and 9, which just blew my mind. I'm truly in awe of how crisp and precise that machining is. Now aside from the mirror polished bevels, there's an applied block of loom in the center of the larger hour markers, which has also been machined along the side and beveled to fit that profile of the markers, which, if you think about it on a microscopic level, is absolutely insane. That's near perfect level of attention of detail, and it's the first time I've actually seen this, and I think this is why it compares so well against the GS. Now the markers also feature these very difficult to see cross brushing. Again, you have to kind of zoom in, but you can see just how extremely precise these horizontal grooves are. They're perfectly cut, perfectly machined. Unfortunately, I don't have a macro lens, to show you, this level of detail, but I can use stills that I've captured and give you some sort of an idea of what level of microscopic detail is visible on these hour markers. So just that alone has let me know that this watch is at another level. And moving on to the hands, you've got a very similar level of precision. The workmanship is so immaculate. It looks sharp as anything. You've got uniform brushing, very superior in every way, and it's completed with that lovely capped seconds hand. So you really do need to soak all this in my opinion, and from what I've seen, no matter how good San Martin are, they haven't produced indices and dials to this level as of yet. I mean, they're very close and they've made some really good dials, but the handset and the beveling that I'm seeing that SEESTERN are capable of on these just these hour markers, it's ridiculous. So I think this is what SEESTERN brings. It brings that faithfulness on how close they can get to the master designs. So the next thing to really focus on is the case. This is what makes the watch feel really great in hand. You have a mix of brushing and polishing, and under the lugs along the side of the watch, you have this mirror polishing, which is very smooth, and it does complement that curvy shape of the case. Now the finishing extends to just over the lugs, where it transitions into that soft linear brushing right on the inside of the lugs. It is of course satin brushing, very smooth and even grain, and it's extremely crisp in the transition that it does from both types of finishing. Now this tapered brushing that you find just on the edges of the lugs, it does do a really good job of matching with those bracelet end links, how the watch just looks very uniform across that front. Now that polishing extends to that case back, which has a polished outer ring with the specifications, and the center has a soft circular brushing on the inside. And here they're showing us a consistent high quality of brushing throughout the whole case, and it is present on every angle. Now moving on to the bracelet, it does have the same uniform soft satin linear brushing, and I tend to look down the whole length of the bracelet to look for any inconsistencies, but this finishing is very high end and everything is just polished and brushed to perfection. And the bracelet style is very similar to an oyster style, but it has 5 links. The 2 outer polished links on either side of the middle link are separated, and again very highly polished. Same level of finishing present on the top side of the clasp. You've got polished bevels and linear brushing on the A face, and then you also got the classic SEESTERN starfish logo. Now let's address form and function. I've left out this part on purpose to cover it in this section. Now starting with that sapphire. It's a particularly interesting sapphire crystal. It's a low dome air coated sapphire, but look how that sits. It's absolutely flush with that silver polished ring, and it does give a very clean side profile to the watch head. And it's small details like this that really complement the watch. Now the bezel construction is also quite interesting. I want to draw your attention to the actual watch case. At this particular angle, I want you to notice how everything kind of slopes downwards. Now this is a unique Seiko feature which I've sort of found on pretty much so many Seikos out there. And what it does, it really helps bigger watches wear a lot smaller, and it helps them really wear well. So this sloping starts at the actual bezel construction and it slopes downwards. The grip itself features brushing on the outside and polished inner scallops. But because you can see the profile of the actual bezel is relatively thin, it doesn't slip and it allows you to have a good grip off that bezel. Now in terms of bezel rotation, it is one of the nicest bezels I've seen. It's very firm, there's no playback, and you get very satisfying clicks. I think resistance is bang on in the middle. It's not too difficult to turn and it's not very loose at all. So I think it's safe to say that the majority of us expected to see a bi-directional bezel, and it would have been a preferred choice as well, as it would be the correct thing to do. But as it stands, functionally, it still is a very nice bezel. It's definitely not a deal breaker. Now moving on to the loom, it's a little bit different here. You've got a loomed sapphire inset, but the bottom half is fully loomed. Top half is just loomed with the numerals. And it does look great in the dark. Don't get me wrong, it's not super powerful bright like what you see on the dive watches, but it's very decent. It does have a very steady glow. And it's more for sporty watch type of loom. It's very adequate. You can see there's even layering applied. There's no high spots, there's no dead spots in the loom, and it does last a fair while. Now moving on to the crown, it is a healthy size crown. It's about 6.5mm. It is fully polished with that Suges S on the crown. And by the way, I still don't like that, but the crown size is good. And you know, I do like how they've kept that crown at 3 and it doesn't look odd. Arguably, someone might say that the GS version has a odd crown position at 4, but I like how they've done it and made it a 3 PM crown. Now the crown obviously has no flaws in its operation. SEESTERN, one of the things when they first were released, one thing that stood out was just how smooth the crown operations were. Moving on to the bracelet, you obviously have female end links, which is a really good choice. It's crucial for wearability due to, you know, that length of this watch, which is just under 50mm. And you get a really good fit with the end links into the watch case. Now the bracelet links are screwing and I had zero issues screwing them in and, you know, sizing the watch up. You've got very good threading and yeah, you can just see that good quality in down to the screws. Now this brings us onto the clasp. Now this is where we get 3 micro adjustments, which isn't the worst thing. If they only had 2, then I would definitely written it off. But I know personally that 3 micro adjustments do work well. It's a small difference between the watch fitting just right or a little too loose or a little too tight. Now what really helps is that they have provided a half link on one side and you've got sort of a quarter link on the clasp side, the other side of it. Would have been a lot better if they did include a half link on either side of that clasp. Then combined with the 3 micro adjustments, it would have been perfectly functional. So again, I think the preference here would have been an on-the-fly adjustable clasp, which I think, you know, everybody would love because the watch is also bigger. And you know, the clasp would have been a decent proportion for this watch. I have heard there is a plan to upgrade these watches with an on-the-fly adjustable clasp, but we don't know when. As it currently is, you shouldn't have any sizing issues, and it does overall suit the watch and the bracelet. Now, finally on wrist, wow, you know, this watch sits so good. I think the best way I can describe the fit is that it's wholesome, meaning you feel the whole watch on wrist, and it's a really good feeling. You feel the case back, the lugs, the bracelet, they all hug and hold on to the wrist so good that you don't really feel the size or the weight at all. Now it's only 41mm, of course, with a 13mm thickness and a lug to lug up just a touch under 49mm, which would have been a concern had this watch not followed those blueprints from the original, you know, those downturns on the case, female end links on the bracelet, and all combined, it is really a lovely fit. The only one thing lacking, I can say that there's no drill lugs with this case or quick release spring bars for the bracelet, as I know this watch will look great on rubber or leather straps as well. But to finally sum it up, there's 2 slight moans from me, with both having the same conclusion. It would have been nicer with a bi-directional bezel and an on-the-fly adjustable clasp, but as it stands, you know, it still feels really good in hand. It definitely satisfies that GS Sports GMT itch, which someone might have. And even if you don't, as a watch by itself, this is SEESTERN's best model yet. And this is the beauty of AliExpress. You know, a lot of us don't want to spend that £4,000 to £5,000 on a GS GMT sports watch, but you can still taste some of that finishing that is potentially on offer, because SEESTERN have done an amazing job trying to capture some of those finer details. I mean, just go back and look at the indices and the dials, the casework as well, the attention to detail that I've kind of shown you, you know, the casework in particular, everything is just so well done. I'm truly amazed by this watch. But please, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. A lot of you guys have ordered this, so, you know, a lot of you guys have formed an opinion. So for anybody still waiting to buy this, you can pitch it on the comment section and just let everybody know your free thoughts. Do not hold back, and I'm sure we will all appreciate it. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.